Welcome back, guys. Automotive Inc. So today I wanted to do a video in regards to follow up, I guess, in regards to oil consumption, oil issues, lifter valve issues with the Godzilla. If you guys have been watching the channel, you guys know we just picked up a 6.6 Chevy gasser to put against the Godzilla. I got some good towing stuff that has happened in the last few weeks, and those videos will wrap up this Saturday. And within a week or so, we will have some gauntlet challenges. Now, again, a point of contention with this motor is the early lifter failure that's causing, these engines to, I guess, catapult themselves into oblivion. And again, that ratio is very, very, very low, and was mostly in the early versions of the 7.3 Godzilla. So this came out in 2020. So, people, are just scared of the motor for whatever reason. Well, I've been driving it for a while. We've been pulling with it quite a bit. We're still only at 6,000 miles, but I did change the oil early on. I don't push my oil change intervals out very far. And with oil changes, a lot of people want to know, well, what can I do to protect myself? I looked at the dipstick. I didn't see anything shiny, and I didn't see any metal. Well, some of these pieces of metal, if they were really happening, can be finer than that. So there are companies out there, Blackstone Labs, Test Oil Now. I'll put links down in the description. If you really wanted to get this tested at your oil changes, you could. Now, keeping in mind, if you are going to have that done and you say take this to a dealer or Jiffy, whatever all those little quick stop oil place changes are, they might be reusing pans or collection tubs that had other oil in there. So if they're just, I don't know how they're going to collect it, but basically the way these companies would prefer you do it would be to pop the drain valve, and they give you a little pea cup for your oil, and you're going to splash it, get a couple different samples of it. I would recommend getting a splash at the beginning, getting a bigger collection piece that's clean, not even just a general pan, and getting a sample before, the middle, and after, or maybe towards the end, but it just depends on the warmness. That's why there would be an advantage to getting it 3 different little pieces as it flows out. But if you do go to these other sites that do your oil changes for you, more than likely they're using collection bowls that have already had other people's stuff. So you got to really keep that in mind, okay? And there's one little valve that you can buy. I've put them on several. I think Fumoto. I'm saying it wrong. There'll be a link in the description. You can get those on the Zon. And basically what those are is a little brass and stainless steel valve you screw into instead of the plug. They have a little valve on there, and you can hook a hose to it, and so that way you don't have to have any splash. There's hundreds of those companies that make those drain plugs out there. I'm going to put them in there. I'll put another one that I've used before. I have to look it up. I don't even remember, but they're all about the same, okay? So because it's going to be very messy to try and collect that sample with not one of those valves, but it is doable, all right? So one thing I would tell you and I would warn you against is sometimes is also you send these out, you get your own collection, the dealer caught the sample for you, and then you get your report card. Your report card will say, well, it's high in this area, high in that area, it's going to break it down. And if they don't actually give you a section where it breaks down the data, I would be a little bit hesitant to just take it as anything. Because if you go to whatever I'm talking about on the line, and you type in, I got the cold, well, 10 steps later, you got colon cancer somehow, and you're like, oh my gosh, and people freak out. I wouldn't personally be concerned about that, because especially if you are doing early on oil changes on any motor, because you do have break-in oil, okay? I changed, I think, at 4,000 miles or whatever, and I would probably change this at the severe service interval, which I think is around 5,000. I have to look again, but otherwise I think you can go out 7,500. But severe means stop and go traffic, pulling a trailer, hot, blah blah blah. Well, I live in the city, do some stop and go, short commutes, idle times, etc., and so forth. Me personally, though, they're saying that the 7.3 is really starting to have these issues right around 50, 60,000 miles. Well, that's about the end of your powertrain, and I would hope that by then you had already seen something by checking your oil. You've seen oil consumption, something in regards to that, so you weren't necessarily starting to do that. Again, a lot of people are I tell them all the time, I said, well, if you're that freaked out, but you love the truck and you love the motor and it hasn't been an issue, then get an extended warranty. Me personally, I don't buy those, but I mean, cheap insurance, man, cheap, stress-free headache protection, right? If it blows up, you can be out of your truck for a little bit, but you would also then have to have that truck blow up. Okay, so I'm just saying, like, if you need that peace of mind, I would look at that. If you're doing these oil samples early, again, take them with a grain of salt. If you can't confirm yourself that that oil was 100% only your oil, you caught it yourself, it's 100% good, and then you don't know how to interpret the data 100%, then call the company, get some clarification if you see an area where it's a little bit higher. So typically in a motor like this, you might see iron content high if because most of the stuff's made out of cast iron and steel, so you're going to see those aspects higher if something was starting to fail, but that's not always necessarily the case, especially if you let an oil change go a little bit longer. The motor's wearing itself as you use it, so again, there's always going to be some content in there of whatnot, but they do have baselines and what acceptable average is. Blackstone, I think, actually does kind of like a little like it could be high because of this, but then it could be this, but then it could be this, and if they're worried or something like that, but then again, you're going to go into Ford and they're going to be like, too bad, who cares? But that's what I would definitely tell you. As of right now, we have almost 6,000 miles on the Godzilla. We've had 0 issues with oil consumption. We've had 0 issues showing up when we check the oil, and I'm still not worried about it. I think the Godzilla is a completely solid motor, and I do believe that there were issues early, and that unfortunately, kind of marred up the future vision of this motor. But I think you got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. We did it with the Chevy 2 that has a service bulletin currently on it saying that it could burn oil at a quart every 100 gallons if used for heavy service. Well, we already went out with 500 miles on it and put it to the test for 108 miles. So at the end of the day, I'm getting close to that 1,000. It doesn't look like it's burning any oil, but it is something that you got to be cognizant about. But a lot of people will jump in a brand new vehicle and just drive it, and they let the people change their oil and do all this stuff. I've seen more people probably have an engine failure because the shop they took it to forgot to put adequate oil, right kind of oil, or any oil in it, than I have seen somebody just saying, hey man, I checked my oil and everything's good, and this engine just catapulted itself into oblivion. So I will put all the links down in the description, and that way you guys can see if that oil analysis type stuff is for you. Also, I'll put the valves down in there, so you can just click the link, head over to Zun, and buy it. But if you don't like that valve and you see another one while you're there, just grab another one. Just make sure they have good reviews and they fit your price point budget. But also down there in the corner is my subscription button, and go ahead and hit that, because we do have Ike Gauntlet tests coming up with this truck and the 6.6 Chevy gasser. And I appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you on the next one.